Hello everyone, today I want to give a brief lecture on Plato's theory of the forms. So remember back when we were talking about Thales, we talked about the kind of basic problem of Greek pre-Socratic philosophers. The question was, how can we have knowledge, something permanent, in a world of constant change? Remember, Thales tried to answer this by finding a basic element, water. Plato is going to take a very different strategy. What Plato is going to try to do is say that behind everything that exists in the world, there is something that makes it the kind of thing that it is. There's a criteria or a set of standards that determine that this thing is a triangle or a square or a circle or something like that. And this criteria, this set of standards, is what Plato would call a form. So a form for Plato is a criteria or a set of standards that makes something the kind of thing that it is. The easiest case to think of this is in geometry, with shapes. So for every shape that exists in geometry, there's a set of standards that determine what makes something that shape. So a triangle, for example. We know that a triangle is a three-sided, enclosed, two-dimensional figure where the angles of that figure will always add up to 180 degrees. So the idea is everything in the world that fits that standard counts as a triangle. Everything in the world that doesn't fit that standard doesn't count as a triangle. Now, the thing about these forms is, for Plato, these forms are universal. They are eternal. They are unchanging. So Plato's idea is we might change all the triangles we want in the real world. I could go out in the real world and find every triangle that exists and destroy it, eliminate it, create a world without triangles. Even if I did that, even if I went out and got rid of every particular triangle, there would still be a form of triangleness. That standard, three sides, two dimensions, 180 degrees, that standard doesn't go away when the individual examples of triangles do. So Plato's idea is that while everything might change in the physical world that we live in, there is a standard that makes that thing the kind of thing that it is, and that is unchanging. Now, this is not just for triangles and squares and circles, even though that might be the easiest place to see Plato's theory of the forms at work. According to Plato, everything that is has a form, and everything that is what it is because it fits that criteria, because it fits that standard. So as philosophers, we tend to not be so interested in things like triangles and squares and circles, but what we are interested in are things like goodness, rightness, truth, knowledge, justice, reality, these kinds of questions. And so Plato's view is that there is a universal, unchanging, eternal form of justice. Everything that ever was just, everything that is just now, and everything that ever will be just in the future must fit this unchanging form. So notice also that Plato here is challenging an idea that will come across this semester called cultural relativism. Plato doesn't believe that justice changes from place to place and time to time, or goodness or rightness or anything like that. There is always the universal standard of what counts as good or just or right, and that standard is the eternal unchanging form. Now, we might not always know what those forms are. If you read the Socratic dialogues, usually what's happening is someone is asking a what is question. What is justice? What is truth? What is rightness? What's happening in those dialogues is they are looking for the form. They are trying to figure out what the form of justice or rightness or goodness would be. So we might not know what the forms are, but for Plato, that doesn't mean that the forms don't exist. So the task of philosophy then is to have true knowledge of the forms, to know those eternal, universal standards that don't change. If we have true knowledge of the forms, then we can have true knowledge of the things that we care about in our lives. If I know what justice is, I can be just. If I know what goodness is, I can be good. If I know what rightness is, I can do the right thing. And so that's the role that Plato's theory of the forms are supposed to play. So just one more time, really quickly as a summary. Plato defines a form as a universal, eternal, and unchanging criteria or set of standards that determine what makes something the kind of thing that it is.